Hey everyone, it's the Miserable Movie Man back once again with another video. This is it. This is the big one, the film that I've waited a year for. I finally saw Superman last night and wanted to put my review out there before all the hype and the buzz fades away from this film. A few folks are quite keen to hear my thoughts and I'll share them with you now. I'll start off by saying that I was incredibly worried that this version of Superman, done by a very talented writer-director James Gunn, could maybe surpass the gold standard, which to me is Christopher Reeve's version. But, having seen the film last night, I can safely say it doesn't come close. Now, I'm not saying there aren't good things about this film, and I'll probably start with those. But there are also a lot of not so good things about this film. And folks that know me and know the channel know how much of a huge Superman fan I am. My favorite character always has been, I like all of them. A lot of the folks who think they're cool and edgy and teen, they love, the dark grittiness of Batman. They can't relate to Superman. I have a different take on things. I think we all need people to look up to. I think we all need heroes to aspire to be. I think we all need hope in our lives. And that's what Superman gives us. Does he show this type of thing in the film? Yes, he does. Does he also show other things that aren't so great? Yes, he does. So, for me, it was a bit of a mixed bag. I think my wife said it best when she came out of the film. She said there were some good things in that film, but there was a lot of silliness involved. But let's start with the good then. I thought Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane was probably the highlight of the film for me. I think she nails Lois pretty well. I mean, it's similar to the versions that we've seen before with Margot Kidder, Amy Adams, Elizabeth Tulloch, and my personal favourite, Lois Lane, who was Terry Hatcher. I think she does a pretty reasonable job of, Lois's characteristics, her hunger for a story, the way that she treats the world and sees it. We don't get too much into her backstory. There's not a lot of talk about Lucy or Sam or any of her, extended family or anything like that. But, she does what you expect. She does a pretty good Lois, and she's actually useful in the film. She drives the plot forwards and, she ends up rescuing Superman, which she has done many times in the comics. So, it's good to see that. I thought Colin Sweat looked the part. And I know he's playing James Gunn Superman, but, physically, visually, I thought that was pretty strong. I thought it was a good return to the trunks, which my wife has pointed out are more like boxers now instead of the Y-front style that he had from the early days. But the trunks are good. I think you need the trunks. I don't want Superman to be too cool and modern and edgy. You don't need that for the character to work. I think if you like Superman, you don't care about those things anyway. So why you need to change them is beyond me. But Colin Sweat looks the part. I thought the romance between Lois and Clark was pretty decent in this film. That was one of the stronger elements of it for me. Although, if you look at it, they've been dating for 3 months. She already knows who he is. And she was going to break up with him at one point because of the way he sort of carries on and his immature attitude as to how he handles certain questions. But, for all of that, he says he loves her, and then she realizes she loves him, and, they kiss and make up. I thought when they're together, the chemistry was very strong, even if they were playing off each other and doing scenes where they do sort of explore their relationship a bit. I thought how she fell in love with him so quickly after initially thinking she was going to dump him, that was a little bit forced for me. But as I said, overall, the relationship element, the romance, was decent in this film. I wouldn't say brilliant, but decent. I thought a few folks in the Justice Gang were good. Fillion as Guy Gardner, and we all know that Fillion was tagged to play Hal Jordan for a while now, which is a shame he never did it. He did the voiceover, I think, in one of the DC animated films, but he hadn't actually played Hal Jordan yet. But he nails Guy Gardner. He nails the 1990s Justice League and Justice League International Guy Gardner from Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. That is the version of Guy Gardner that I grew up reading. That is the version that I saw on screen. And I thought he was a cool Guy Gardner. It was good seeing Guy come to life in that way, in a positive way, in a way that I was expecting to see and hoping to see. I thought that Mr. Terrific was good. I thought he was definitely one of the stronger characters in the movie. Was he as good at Mr. Terrific as the one portrayed not just in the comics, but in the DC Animated Universe, in the Justice League show and Justice League Unlimited show? No. If you want a definitive Mr. Terrific, go read I think it was in the Morrison run. He was great in that. And also go watch the animated shows, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Both of them are incredibly good. And I think he's only in Justice League Unlimited, if I'm not wrong. But he's great in that. But I thought, he was played well. I thought Eddie Gathegi did a good job playing him. A little bit more robot-like, soulless, lack of emotion. I thought that was a decent character. I liked the pace. It starts off fast and never really lets up. Although the pacing in the film was decent. Throwing in a few introspective scenes in the way that James Gunn likes to do, but the pacing was good. I liked how James Gunn is trying to make a version of Superman, and at least some of the visuals and things in terms of the 60s and the Silver Age of comics, stuff we haven't seen before. Now, he's come out and said that in many interviews, and I think he accomplished that pretty well on screen. He is someone that likes the bizarre anyway, so to have little sort of growling lizards turn into giant kaiju, to have, mystical dimensional beings in the background that are getting fought by the Justice Gang, to have pocket dimensions and typing monkeys. He doesn't choose to explain these things, and they were pretty present in the Silver Age, so to normalize them in the way that he did, I think worked okay for me. When Lois is talking to Superman and the Justice Gang are fighting that... Is it an imp from the fifth dimension? I can't remember exactly what Clark said. If it is, then we all know who that mystical fifth dimensional imp should be, don't we? But having that sort of stuff in the background, having buildings and cities collapse and giant monsters and big rifts in time and space, I think that stuff was portrayed well on the screen. And finally, the thing that I liked from a character perspective that James Gunn chose to do, and we haven't seen it too much in the films, but I think we need more of it, is showcasing Superman's priority for life, showcasing the way that he wants to save everyone and everything and would rather not engage in a battle of fists if he can help it. There are quite a few lines in the film where he's trying to figure out different ways to fight monsters, or he's trying to figure out a different way to help people. Something that involves him using his brain more and trying to reason with people and telling people that, you still have a chance, don't let Luthor manipulate you, or telling Guy Gardner there must be a better way to bring this thing down. Even saving the squirrel. It shows Superman's regard for life and the choices he makes to always see if there is a more peaceful solution. See if there is a smarter way to do these things. And I really did appreciate James Gunn showing us that side of Superman that I think hasn't really been portrayed too much before. He always gives people a chance. He always tries to see if he can talk them round or talk them down or bring them back from the brink. That's really a strong essence of his character that should come through in almost all situations. But usually, people want to see him fly and punch and use his heat vision, so that element of his personality gets sacrificed for the action. And I think Gunn blended a good mix of both in this film. So, all in all, there were things to like about this film. I thought Krypto was okay, and I'll get onto Krypto a little bit more in a minute. If you're going to do Krypto in a way that's believable and not like DC Super Pets, I think this was probably a reasonable effort. But again, if you watch the film, Krypto is really in there a lot for the comic relief. And there were periods where it just got a bit too ridiculous for me. But, a valiant attempt, shall we say, to bring Krypto on screen for the first time in live action. So I'll give him his props for trying, at least. But then let's get on to the bad, or to the silly. I'll move on to Superman's character in a minute, but let's start with Lex. Every hero needs a great villain, and at least to me, Nicholas Hoult was not one. I don't know if Lex has been done to death before. You had, various iterations of it, starting with, Hackman, and then Spacey, and then Rosenbaum. I thought John Shea in Adventures of Lois and Clark was a perfect Lex. I mean, unbelievably good. So whether Nicholas Hoult didn't find the inspiration he needed is not something I'm sure of. But he didn't sell me Lex Luthor in this film. Lex Luthor was a ranting, crazy, psychotic, just cartoonish character for a lot of the film. That was interspersed with scenes where he's trying to be really cold and calm and calculating, and he's trying to sway the government or intimidate Superman. But he's ranting so much. I mean, when we came out of the cinema, my wife kept saying, 1A, 37B, 67D, 45E, E, 1A, 45E, 37B. It's just, after you've seen it once, just there's no need to do it at that level again. I don't think it helped that Nicholas Hoult, he looked like a skinny version of Lex, but if you read Lex in the comics, he is unbelievably brilliant, unbelievably cold and calculating, and unbelievably genius, and he has so much hubris that he just doesn't even show a lot of these things most of the time. He just assumes people know how good he is. He doesn't have to go ranting on about it. And he is dark in the comics. He will mess you up without you even knowing, and he won't go off the deep end cackling and trying to figure out how he can beat Superman. When he beats Superman in the comics, he does it with a glint or a smile or a smirk or maybe a word or two. When he fails and can't do what he wants to do in the comics, he doesn't, rant for such a long... he gets angry, but he just doesn't go on some crazy rant and start breaking things in a Kylo Ren emo-esque type of way. Even when he was president of the United States, part of him is trying to help the country, and part of him has his own agenda, and you get that without having it thrown in your face. I thought that Nicholas Hoult was too hammy in this film, and it was too much in your face, and yeah, he shows his ruthless side by kidnapping so many people, and he brazenly kills a guy in cold blood. Lex has done those things, but he's done it in a more subtle manner in the comics, and I thought this Lex Luthor was too much in your face, too over the top. Also, I think Nicholas Hoult being very young didn't help me believe about Lex, and some of his facial expressions, which we've seen over and over again in the trailers, have been played for intensity and exaggeration, which I don't think adds to the tone and the character of Lex as a character in the comics that I know and read and love. So I don't think Nicholas Hoult was great. Let's get on to Superman himself. I thought Coral Sweat did an okay job, but this Superman for me is not super. He's just man. Everything about his character in this film screamed human, 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 human. Yes, I know he's been raised by the Kents, and I'll get onto the Kents in a minute. Yes, he makes all these choices by himself. But he seems so ridiculously naive, so, detached from reality. He seems so much of a bungling, kind of buffoonish simpleton in this film. The hope parts were okay, as I said at the start. He tries to give people hope, right? And he tries to be everyone's friend. But when Superman is everyone's friend, he's still Superman. He doesn't talk to people as a friend by trying to talk to them and act with them like Gary off the street. So that was something I found pretty strongly, negative about his character portrayal in this. I get that James Gunn is really trying to humanize him to the point where we can relate. Maybe James Gunn can't figure out a way to make Superman relatable and, showing a Superman side to him, that gravitas, that stoicism, that, just unerring sense of what is the right thing to do, even if it is in the face of impossible or insurmountable odds. That didn't come through for me in this film. The speech at the end where he tells Luthor, look, the reason I'm special is because I get up every day and I put one foot after the other and I make mistakes, and yes, we want a Superman that is like that. And maybe we want a Superman that says that to Luthor. But we don't want to constantly see Superman making silly decisions, not knowing, how to navigate the world, getting his ass whooped at every opportunity, having people bail him out all the time. I mean, if you look at it, he's just beaten and then beaten and then beaten and captured, and then he's ridiculed and then gives himself up and gets beaten again and then captured again, and it's just one after the other. I read a review where it's just saying, constant failure of Superman just is a bit too much. Even when at the end he's saving the woman from the building and you can see him holding up the building, that's iconic. He should have lifted that building, not have her just drive off long enough that he holds it so it just collapses over him. And maybe, the physics has never been exactly something that holds up in Superman films, but we don't want it to be. This is a film about a man that flies, for Christ's sake. So he should be performing feats where he is taking down that kaiju. He is lifting the building back up. He's showing us why he's Superman. If this is a Silver Age 60s Superman, he should be able to get out of black holes. He shouldn't be sucked in and getting, crushed by these people. But, I get they wanted to give him a challenge. They wanted to make him relatable. You can't have Superman wiping the floor with everyone all the time. That's not something that makes for great viewing. Having said that, though, the Justice Gang feel that they're tougher than him. He's not even a member of the Justice Gang. And he is out there proclaiming himself to be the strongest metahuman, even though we know he's not a metahuman because he's not human. But it's one of those things where I want to see Superman live up to his potential, not constantly being put down, challenged, and having no real payoff scenes where, even at the end when he's fighting himself, he beats the guy for a bit, beats his clone for a bit, and then the clone comes back because Luthor can't direct him. Might have been cool. I know James Gunn would never do this, but it might have been cool when Superman is getting his ass handed to him to have him pay a visit to Batman and have Batman train him in how to fight like a human being in a way that would help Superman going forwards. Maybe even Batman can teach him how to use his powers better than he knows how to. But no, we keep seeing Superman get constantly beaten up by everyone. And he's not just getting beaten up. He's bloody, pulverized, his face gets, disformed and disfigured. He's always in some state of disrepair. There's very few times in the film where either he isn't beaten up or his suit isn't messed up or he's getting his face stomped into the ground. So I thought there was too much of that. And again, the naivety of going into a foreign country and almost starting a war and interfering in global politics. These storylines have been done in the comics, and they've been done much better than they were done in the film. Superman has to make tough choices, and yes, at the end of the day, he's saving lives, but you have to see him weigh up these tough choices. He has to know that it is a tough choice to involve himself in global politics and in the affairs of various nation states. Having Lois be the sensible one to, sort of interview him and chide him and chastise him on his very naive and immature actions didn't sit well with me. I liked some of his responses. I saved lives. That's what I did. What do you think I did? I stopped a war. I stopped people from dying. Yeah, I get that. But if that's the choice you're making, you need to do that globally. So I'm sure there are other wars. I'm sure people are dying everywhere. I'm sure you have to make a choice who you're going to save, how you're going to get involved, how it will impact the reputation and the political stature of the country you're living in. I don't think Superman would have ignored these things. This is a guy that's supposed to be super smart as well as super strong. And I think a lot of it was that smart element of Superman was very, very much missing in this film. It almost seemed to me when he was talking sometimes that he portrayed a lot of the characteristics of Connor. I mean, he was Superboy. He goes off half-cocked. He gets emotional about everything. He gets very sort of angry and aggressive at small things. And he gets involved and sees a very simple black and white view of the world. Superman has a very nuanced view of the world. And I think that is something people do not think about. They don't realize, they completely underestimate. He values all life. He values life above everything. But he knows how bad people can be. He knows how governments and countries interact with each other. He knows he can't be everywhere at once. So he has to take a view. He has to make choices. He has to be able to say, this is what I'm prepared to do, and this is what I have to live with. And I don't think that maturity was there. I think James Gunn took out all of that in favor of trying to make him so human that we can all relate to him. And that didn't sit well with me. What also didn't sit well with me is his changing of Jor-El and Lara. The first part of the message was great, and it was interesting to see, oh yeah, we have sent you to humanity, you could do good and all this stuff. And then the engineer comes in and pulls in the second half of the message, and they go at great lengths to say, actually, the second half of the message is true. Jor-El did say, take over the Earth, get a harem, I should say, repopulate Krypton, get a load of mixed race kids, and have Krypton's dream live over you and rule Earth. Oh dear. Is this what you have to do to showcase why Clark picks humanity? You want to completely cut him off from his Kryptonian heritage? You want to portray Jor-El as someone being so bad that in order to make you feel good about yourself, you have to completely disavow being Kryptonian because they were a race of rulers and they were, folks that wanted you to go out and spread your seed everywhere. That was bad. Not as bad for me as having Superman have a kid out of wedlock in Superman Returns, but it comes pretty darn close. I think that changes the whole thing completely for me. It was something that I really didn't want to hear, didn't want to see. It reinforces his parents on Earth and their importance to him. And of course you have the switch at the end, the last scene, where instead of seeing a video of his Kryptonian parents, he sees images of him as a kid growing up in Smallville with two parents that look exactly the same 30 years later. So I understand kind of why James Gunn did it, but I thought you didn't have to. I mean, Clark is who he is because of his dual heritage. He is somebody that is mixed. He has Kryptonian DNA and Kryptonian heritage, and culturally he's grown up on Earth. That is the story of many folks who came to America, and I think it's one of those tales that is worth telling. He gets his values from both of them, both sets of parents. And to take one out of the picture completely is a real disservice to the character. Now, of course, there's a lot of folks saying that Luthor doctored the footage, and we'll find out later on that's actually not what they said. And of course, Kara can translate the actual message if she really wants to. And maybe they were doing it to show, look, Clark makes his choices based on who he is, not on what his parents are telling him to do. And in fact, even Jonathan at one point says that in the film, like, our job is not to tell you who you are. Our job is to give you the tools and watch you make your own choices and be proud of you, son. And then, of course, Jonathan cries because he's the mushy one, yeah, right? And the men are sensitive and the women are the strong ones in the family, in the Kent household. My favorite version of the Kents, other than the original 78 Donner film, because I thought Jonathan Kent in the original Superman film was legendary. Some of the stuff and the way he teaches Clark is amazing. He chides Clark for being able to score a touchdown, and Clark says, well, I'm just doing what I can naturally do. Is it bad if a bird flies? I'm doing what things I can do. And then Jonathan says, look, I have to believe you were put here for a reason, son. I don't know what that reason is. Maybe it's, and he thinks he's about to say something. He goes, I don't know. But one thing I do know, it was not to score touchdowns, right? And that's after that, they do the run, and then Jonathan dies, and Clark realizes his powers are limited. For all his great powers, he could not save his father from a heart attack. That is a singularly important lesson in Superman's life that should never ever be ignored. And so I love that version of Jonathan, and I digress a little bit. I also love the version of Jonathan Kent that we got in Lois and Clark. I thought Eddie Jones was great. He showed, so much caring for his son. He was kind of the old school farmhand that didn't understand the modern world. And Casey Callan did a great job of portraying a beautiful modern take on Martha, someone that's plugged into the zeitgeist, but still, is very motherly towards her son and, very much loving of her husband. So that was a great dynamic. I thought the JK and Martha in this film were okay. They seemed a little bit bumbling, a little bit buffoonish, not really knowing how technology works or the phone or these things. I'm not sure what that was put in there for. Maybe it's to reiterate Clark's upbringing. Clark's sitting outside having cereal. And, obviously we heard that he likes breakfast for dinner, his favorite food. I don't know why that's there, but it really made Clark seem to be a full product of his Midwestern values. But at the same time, I don't think the parents were as strong as they could have been or should have been in terms of, how they shaped him. I thought if you read some of the Superman comics, American Alien, Birthright, Man of Steel miniseries, this is what you need to see if you're going to show the parents. But James Gunn chose to ignore all of that and have Superman fully formed and have a few conversations dotted around here or there to reinforce what his parents did for him. Let's go on to the dog. Let's go on to Krypto. I thought Krypto was, as I said, valiant attempt to portray Krypto on screen. He got a bit much. Maybe that is how a dog is, and maybe that is how a dog should be. And having an alien dog that looks exactly like a dog is something that no one questions, which is great. But Krypto became the comic relief. Anytime you wanted something crazy to happen, or stupid to happen, or silly to happen, Krypto was there, jumping around on everyone. Superman can't control him. Being up Lex in a similar vein to the way Hulk beat up Loki. Having Krypto be the person that saves Superman at the end, right? From his clone, because that's why Superman starts laughing. He's got help. He can't do this by himself. Even having Krypto, when Lex had captured him with the wide eyes and running, chasing animals, that got a reasonable laugh out of the audience, and I don't think that was tried to be played for humor. So I wasn't a fan of having that much Krypto in it. I guess if you're going to do Krypto and you spend the money on him, you might as well use him as much as possible. But again, I thought for the light relief and for the comedy elements, it was too much Krypto for me. I needed it toned down a little bit. I thought Hawk Girl was a complete waste. My wife said to me, does she do anything other than scream? No, turns out she doesn't. She just screams a lot. And really, that was her job in the film, to fly around and scream and maybe say a couple of things to Guy. And also drop the Baravian leader from a great height, because Hawk Girl is clearly a murderer and it's not Superman. And it's okay to murder from the Justice Gang. They are the Justice Gang, right? It's not an injustice thing. That's not laws of justice. It's not even a crime syndicate of America. But, having those three as the Justice Gang seemed a bit small and weak to me. I don't know if they're going to cover that more in the Peacemaker show. Nice cameo, by the way. But it will be interesting to see. James Gunn hiring his brother as Maxwell Lord. Let's see how that pans out. We all know what Maxwell Lord did and was like in the comics, so how they will do it here, I don't know. Someone that's bankrolling the Justice Gang with that silly moniker, I'm not sure. Let's get on to some of the Daily Planet folks. So, of course, we had the classic crew, Perry White, who has one scene in the film where he talks. The rest of the time, he's not even talking. In fact, it's such low volume that early in the film where he tells Jimmy, call him Chief, it's such a low volume and almost unheard. So that later on at the end, when you get the payoff where Perry says to Jimmy, call me Perry, doesn't really have much of an impact. I think Wendell Pierce is a good actor, but again, like Lawrence Fishburne, they didn't give him enough to do. You look at Jackie Cooper in the first one, he's brilliant as Perry White. Look at Lane Smith, brilliant as Perry White. But they really didn't really give him enough screen time in this film, so I thought Perry was wasted. Jimmy was used a bit more than he has been in the past, and I thought that was good. I have no idea why every woman is in love with Jimmy. I mean, they introduced that early on with a couple of, I guess, interns at the Daily Planet smiling at him, and he seems to have, a ton of women at his disposal. And obviously, Miss Tessmacher also is severely in love with him. What has Jimmy got that makes all the ladies love him? Superman was quite an adult film for me. I know it's supposed to be a family film, but there was a lot of swearing in it. And if Jimmy has what I think he has, maybe that's the reason all the women love him. But other than that, I can't see any reason why people fawn over him so much. But he did have some parts to play in the film just to help it along a little bit. But again, not really enough scenes with him or about him for me to get a sense that he was a useful character other than, having one bit of information that he found out from his test marker. I thought Cat Grant was wasted. I haven't seen Supergirl, the show, much. But I heard that she was well done in that. She was really well done in Lois and Clark. And is a great character if you use her well. But one throwaway scene when she's talking to Lois about her dating life isn't great. And then Steve Lombard. I mean, what was the point in having Steve in there? Even in the trailer where Clark says to Steve he's a loser, I think James Gunn cut quite a few things in the trailer that people like the look of. Even the angle of the scene where they're having the interview and Clark Kent says Miss Lane in the Superman voice. People got very excited about that, but he didn't even use that shot in the film. And similarly with Steve Lombard, he's supposed to be there as a light relief. He's supposed to be there as a foil to Clark. He's supposed to be making fun of Clark and making Clark look silly. He barely did anything in the film. Again, what was the point of that character? I know there were some nods to the original 78 film. Lex is after land again. Luthorville. You can see that it's a land grab scheme in homage to the 78 version of the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor. A little bit weak for me. I mean, if Luthor's that rich, he should be able to buy his own land. If he can create pocket universities, he should have enough money not to care about trying to, buy the people off the land. I'm sure the Jalabarians or Jalabrians, I can't remember their name, would have sold him the land if he gave them an extortionate sum for it. I'm not going to get into the woke politics of this film. I think people are reading a little bit much into it, but even if they aren't, in terms of the events portrayed that you see, I don't really want to comment on that aspect of this film. For me, I just wanted to see if I could enjoy Superman on the screen again. And then you have Luthor's team. You have Otis in there. And Otis has a role to play in this, and only later on did I notice that his name was Otis Berg, again in homage to the 78 film, where Otis adds his own city next to Costa del Lex, Marina del Lex. Otisburg, is it a little itty bitty place? Otisburg, Miss Tessmacher place. And he wrote the S backwards. That was brilliant. And James Gunn clearly is a fan and has added Otis's surname to be Berg in honor of the film. But I didn't think Otis served anything in the film, really. Just talked a lot. And Lex's team, interesting mix of folks from different nationalities. And stylistically, some of the stuff was a bit strange for me. Having Lex's, I guess, R&D site on that beach at the edge of... Was it at the edge of Metropolis? It looked like it was, but then it looked like it wasn't, because Hammer Barabi had to fly through a portal to go far away and then come back through to the beach. And it's not like people can't see that beach on satellite photos. And also, weirdly, the beach had very strange music playing the whole way through, with everyone in beach gear. It's quite a strange thing. But Luthor's crew of all nationalities, they're all operating the different systems that, again, what was the point? Why make those characters so individual? There was the one guy that had a bit of a conscience, but that was it. And then you had the engineer, who Lex bioengineered, and is called the engineer because she engineers things, and she's got nanites, and she can fly a little bit, and she can put infinite number of nanites to poison Superman. I still haven't figured out what he did to that. I mean, if everything was in his lungs and she was standing away from him, and he flew up into the air, did he want her to follow him so that he could drop down and knock her unconscious? And if knocking her unconscious disabled the nanites, why couldn't he have just done that before? It was a bit confusing to me how that worked. But having the engineer and having him play a clone version of himself, sort of Bizarro / Connor type of version maybe. Again, Ultraman is different in the comics, and fair enough, but if that's, what you got to do, at least make it a bit more interesting. Maybe give the clone some feelings. Maybe have the clone be a little bit like Titans, where, you know, they try and have their own personality somewhat. Even the clone arc in Lois and Clark was funny and silly, but half decent in showcasing some of the things that Superman could have felt when he was younger as a kid, and, you know, not having parents and stuff. A lot of interesting areas to explore, which James Gunn ignored. And the film is a fairly tight 2 hours, 9 minutes. It's got 2 post-credit scenes. One is an homage to All-Star Superman. The other is a conversation between Superman and Mr. Terrific that really doesn't add anything. And another thing I wanted to say before I forget, the world leaders, I mean, Rick Flag Sr. was okay. Frank Grillo was okay, and I think he's going to appear in Peacemaker. But the Security Council head, General Maury, maybe it was just me, but I thought the acting was pretty bad. It really did feel like a cartoon at times. It was very hamish and over the top. I didn't think any of those scenes were particularly good. Also didn't really showcase to me why Lex is considered a brilliant businessman and one of the top minds of the world. So I thought some of the supporting cast was a bit weak. And even the Baravian general, again, cliche, something that's been done before, and did come across as a bit ridiculous at times. I thought having one guy, the everyday man, the common man, Malik Ali, Superman's friend, helping him out a few times and then getting killed. Well, I mean, we knew the stakes were high, but it just seemed a bit forced, you know, in Deer Hunter style to me, really to try and shock the audience a little bit, especially for a film that is purportedly family friendly for most of it. I'll talk a little bit about Metamorpho and his baby. The CGI, I didn't think was particularly good on that. I'll talk a little bit about Metamorpho and his baby. The CGI was not particularly good on that, in my view. But I thought having Metamorpho in there as a prisoner without any explanation was okay, fine. But then, you know, when he's part of the plot and when he joins the Justice Gang later on, it's trying to set up, obviously, the League. But then I thought the performance by Anthony Carrigan was, yeah, it was okay. I mean, Metamorpho has always been a conflicted character, but they almost made him completely useless in this film. And he was just overly scared and really, even that look he gives at the end was just weird and creepy. So I wasn't sure what James Gunn was going for with Metamorpho. Metamorpho works much better when he's in another team like, you know, Doom Patrol or you know, other teams like that. So I know he was part of the Justice League at one point. I think he was also started out with Batman and the Outsiders. So, you know, having him in a mainstream team, I don't think it fits his personality or character type. I think if James Gunn had done Plastic Man, that would have been awesome. That would have been hilarious to see. But, you know, he's trying to go for a universe where heroes are already there. Superman is not the first. Oh, no. People have been there for 3,000 years. 300 years, sorry, I should say. And the general population is used to superheroes, used to metahumans. It's everyday life for them. So seeing a disembodied head floating around was supposed to be normal, but still generate a few laughs, I think, in the way James Gunn executed it. I mean, it was kind of comic book accurate, very well done visually, but did have a few laughs. And the baby, the CGI on that, and some of the other CGI elements, again, could have been better for me. Overall, I give this film a 6, maybe 6.5 out of 10. I like bits of it, as I said. There was a lot of things I got wrong. I have fundamental disagreements with some of the choices on the character, how he's portrayed, and how his parents from Krypton are portrayed. And let's see how Supergirl is. I'm kind of looking forward to it, but based on the fact that she comes at the end scene and she's drunk, and she says a few choice words to him. If James Gunn is going for Supergirl as a teenager, fair enough. If he's going for Supergirl, the Kara in the comics that we know is more of an adult who's strong and capable and really tries to live up to the shadow of her younger cousin, I should say, then I think he's failed with that. But let's see how Millie Alcock does in a Supergirl film that's supposed to come out soon. I thought it was a nice touch to have Will Reeve in there, Christopher Reeve's son. And if you blink, he's in a blink and you'll miss it role as a reporter, but at least, you know, James Gunn is trying to show respect for the lineage. And of course he used the iconic score, but he does a huge, you know, electric guitar synth version of it, which was okay. I mean, every time Superman did some kind of big feat, that score played, but it didn't play in a way that was so uplifting as to kind of showcase what Superman is all about, as the original films did. So I think he missed a bit of a trick from that. And having Clark be into rock and, various other bands, and having the songs at the end were strange choices for me. Again, it's a Superman film. It's not a Guardians film. It's not a Spider-Man film. I don't want that type of music at the end to be, that sort of fun, grungy, punky, poppy, rocky kind of feel to it. That's not what I think Superman should be. And so some of those musical choices were a bit interesting, shall we say, to say the least. But one thing that is positive for me, because James Gunn claims to have read all of the comics that I love that make Superman who he is. All-Star Superman, Superman for All Seasons, American Alien, Birthright, Unbound. What's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way? And he still missed quite a lot of what makes this character unique. I think he still missed a trick on so many things. Yes, the hope was back. Yes, it was lighter in tone. Yes, I know he's making Superman as human as he can be, so he can be ultimately relatable to everyone. But what gives me great pleasure in seeing this film is knowing there is a small percentage chance that if I'm ever given an opportunity to do Superman, I still have it, and I can still do it right, and I can still do it better than almost everyone who's done it before. So, for me, that was a positive. Anyway, as a huge Superman fan, this is an extremely long review, and I have rambled on a lot, but I think I've got out everything I needed to say about this film. Go see it. Maybe not with your kids, because there's a lot of swearing in it. Go see it. Let me know what you think. Did you agree or disagree with everything I said? I've seen a lot of reviews where people said they never really liked Superman as a character until they saw this film. And if so, that's great. I mean, it's always good to have more fans. And I know James Gunn wanted to do Superman versus the Elite at one point, which would have been an even better story. But, overall, I think he's missed the mark a little bit here. My order is still Christopher Reeve. I think Tyler Hoechlin goes next. Then probably the Dean Cain incarnation, at least for his version of Clark. And then others afterwards. But maybe you agree, maybe disagree. Let me know what you think of in the comments below. Do you think I missed anything? Do you disagree with anything I've said? Do you have a different take on the characters? As always, very keen to hear your thoughts. As usual, please like, share, subscribe to help support the channel, and catch you next time.